Hi everybody! Today I will be talking about assertiveness training and how that applies to therapeutic recreation and what we can do as recreational therapists to incorporate that into our interventions with our clients. So first of all, I found a couple of really good definitions for assertiveness training and especially assertiveness and what that means. So in the book Facilitation of Therapeutic Recreation Services, Stumbo and Wardlaw's definition is as follows. Assertiveness has been described as a trait, behavior style, a communication style, and a skill to promote positive relations and self-esteem. And then online I found also a good definition, and it says assertiveness is a response that seeks to maintain an appropriate balance between passivity and aggression. Assertive responses promote fairness and equality in human interactions based on a positive sense of respect for self and others. So there's a lot of populations that can be served using assertiveness training, but I just here's a few of the main groups that can benefit from assertiveness training. So those who may have visual impairments, residents that live in nursing homes, those with mental illnesses, maybe there are people who are trying to overcome peer pressure that it could be beneficial for, at-risk youth, and victims of violence and abuse. And so now I've come to the point in this presentation where I want to talk about how assertiveness training is used. And one of the biggest things to remember is that assertiveness training is a form of behavioral therapy, so it follows a lot of the same outlines that are used in behavioral therapy. And assertiveness training has been described as an intervention that explores and develops personal techniques for positive and verbal communication and preferred behavioral responses, which lead to better interpersonal relations. And that's also from the book from Stumbo and Wardlaw. So one of the good techniques, as I was reading this chapter, that I feel like would be important to include in this presentation is the use of iMessages. And so basically the main purpose of these are to enforce a person's ability to stand up for their rights, and that without infringing upon the rights of other people. So basically being assertive. And so it focuses on the person taking responsibility for their feelings and expressing those feelings in a particular way, and it enables them to put assertiveness into practice. And so on the right side of the screen you can see that here's a formula outline of how this is presented. So as you're working with your client, you could go over this outline and have them fill in the blanks when they encounter the situation, or maybe they could come up with a hypothetical situation and fill the blanks in what they might say in that situation. So maybe you're working with a child who is 9 years old and they feel like they're being bullied in school. And so something that they could maybe put in this scenario is, I feel embarrassed when you make jokes about me because it hurts my feelings. I need to feel appreciated, so would like for you to stop making jokes. So that's just a very generic example, but hopefully that gives you a better idea. I found a couple good articles that used different intervention techniques, and one of which was role-playing, and the book also briefly mentions this, but in this article it says that role-playing and assertiveness training can hypothetically be used to shift a person's locus of control from external to internal. So instead of feeling like they can't express their feelings and having the focus on somebody else and their actions towards you, instead of like a passive approach, we want to have more of an assertive approach and be able to help those people stand up for their feelings and what they'd like to express. So through role-playing, this can be This can be a good practice to use to enable a person to know what to say in situations, and you can give them different scenarios to practice, so that when that situation happens, if it happens, they better know how to handle it. A few other intervention techniques. There's questionnaire assessments. This was also in another article that I read, and basically these questions assess a person's assertiveness level, and then that way, as the recreational therapist, you can analyze what might be lacking and what could be improved. With audio tape recordings, you can use these in different ways, one of which you could use them in role-playing and record the person's response in these role-plays so that they can go back and themselves analyze the things that they responded with and maybe make adjustments in that way. And also open discussions, so if you're in a group or even just one-on-one with your client, having those discussions about assertiveness and why that's important and how to improve assertiveness skills. And then also you could assign homework to participants, that one of which could be giving them different scenarios where they may have to apply assertiveness techniques, and then they can write down what they might do in that situation. And also, something that I found interesting was music therapy. There was a study done where they used music therapy and kind of incorporated that into their assertiveness training, and they were able to see improvement in individuals that way. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. And so here's my references, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about recreational therapy and how assertiveness training is applied into it. And once again, behavioral therapy is really applied here, and therapeutic recreation is based on a cognitive behavioral therapy approach when using assertiveness training, so that's something to keep in mind. And assertiveness training is also important in therapeutic recreation because a person's social interaction is used in leisure activities all the time, so assertiveness training can be helpful to a vast number of people. And so in therapeutic recreation, you can practice assertive behaviors and responses that are appropriate. And usually these practices can take place 1 to 2 times a week, just depending on the needs of the client and how you feel they may need this assertiveness training to be applied. That concludes my presentation for today, but if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the discussion board, and I can try to answer those best as I can. But hope you all have a great day.